Hi, this is Maddie, lead youth counselor for Girls Inc. at YWCA Minneapolis. My pronouns are she, her, and hers, and I'm really excited to welcome you all to our next installment of Women of the Week. Congrats, Martha, and welcome.
My name's Martha. My pronouns are she, her, and hers, and I just graduated from Columbia, got my master's of public health in epidemiology. I spent the last 2 years in New York, and I am currently getting ready to start up a Ph.D. program in the fall at Boston University in health services research. So I'm really excited to kind of continue working on ways to improve the health disparities that exist in immigrant and low-income communities.
So can you tell us a little bit about your education path? Like, how did you get to where you are now, and what encouraged you to study public health and epidemiology?
Yeah, absolutely. So I knew I always was really interested in the sciences. So from the start, when I was getting my undergraduate degree, I went to the University of St. Thomas. I knew I wanted to pursue some form of science. And so I was a neuroscience major there, and I was exposed to research. And I honestly never saw myself going into a field that was predominantly based on research. But once I was doing that, I found a research team in the psychology department there and spent 3 years with them working on various projects related to identity development of international adoptees. And it was just a really transformative experience for me. And that made me realize that I wanted to focus more so on population health as opposed to kind of looking at health on the cellular level as I was with neuroscience. And so I decided to pursue my master's degree, and I wanted to go into epidemiology because I guess the best way I describe epidemiology is I'd once heard someone say it's like being a disease detective. You understand, you research the spread of diseases and, the risk factors in the communities that it affects. And so I thought that would be a really great way to continue my, education in research and kind of getting a good foundation in how to conduct the best type of research. And so I spent the last 2 years doing that, and then realized I wanted to continue on my education. And honestly, the main reason was because I think through those 2 years, I also got exposed to other opportunities through working on my thesis, but with faculty on campus, but also through working with the New York City Department of Health. I think that was probably one of the most formative experiences for me. I was an intern there for the last year or so, and I got to work on a federal policy surveillance system. And essentially, we were just monitoring how policies put in place by the current administration is impacting the health of New York City residents. And so through that, I realized, okay, there's another lens to, population health, and that's how policies are being implemented and how I can better, better inform them. And so that's why I'm going to Boston University. And the program that I'm applied to go into, which is the Health Services Research, is under their Department of Health Policy, Law and Management. And so essentially, I want to be able to use the research that I do in the future to inform policies.
What is it like being a female leader in your field and also a woman of color in your field?
Public health is a predominantly women-based field. That's something that I've learned through kind of the last 2 years in academia, as well as while working at the Department of Health. So one of the great things is that I'm always surrounded by women, but something that I've definitely noticed is that leaders in the field are predominantly the men that are in the field. So oftentimes supervisors will be men, but you'll be surrounded by other employees that are women. So it's great to be surrounded by the women, but it's also, hard when you don't see people who look like you in those higher up positions. So I think one big thing for me has been grasping onto those supervisors that I did have that were women in the field. And I had one in particular while I was at the Department of Health who has been such a formative influence in my experience, and honestly is one of the reasons why I'm continuing on my education, and she has really inspired me to kind of go the extra mile. And so I feel like finding those people that are in your field who look like you, who have experiences like you, is really important. So I was fortunate enough to have that. But I definitely see that there isn't a ton of representation of women in those fields or in those positions. And there's also not a lot of people of color in those positions. My supervisor was a white woman, but she obviously was still a very influential person to me. But I, of course, want to see more people who, have had similar experiences to me in kind of working our way up. So that's kind of one of those reasons that I'm really motivated to be in this field, because I know that, one day there'll be a girl who looks like me who wants to do this and maybe doesn't think she can, but she'll see that I'm in that role, and I want to be able to, guide her to that. And I want to serve as like some sort of an inspiration or a mentor or some sort of help to getting more people, more women of color into these, supervisor positions or leadership roles.
What has been the most interesting research that you have done so far?
Ooh, most interesting research. I think aside from our like surveillance system, I think my thesis has been one of the most interesting projects I've worked on, because it's so relevant to my experience, but also students as a whole. I spent the last year working on a project that looks at the relationship between student loan debt and depression. And there's honestly not a lot of projects that are or research that's out there on this topic. And we've been using a longitudinal data set. So we've been following a data set that's a publicly available one, but it's of students it's following students from the age of 12 years old until they're, I think at this point, 35, and they're repeatedly measured over the course of their lifespan. And so having this longitudinal data gives us the opportunity to potentially find causes or find a causal relationship. And so it's been really cool to work on this project, especially because, as someone who's been in academia my whole life, like I, of course, have been accumulating a lot of student loan debt, and I just want to be able to find ways to understand how this is impacting, students, and how we can better improve mental health and find ways to, if it's, decreasing the burden of student loan debt or something, but oftentimes you just need the proof that there's an issue that's stemming from whatever it is, in this case, student loan debt, to be able to make some, formative change. So I really want to be able to continue this on, and I'm like grateful that I have amazing thesis advisors who are willing to kind of continue this research even though I've graduated, to hopefully be able to present this somewhere in the future.
What are you looking forward to the most in your PhD studies?
Yeah, I think it's exciting to finally get to a point where I know exactly what it is I want to do. I'll be working in the field full time with as much knowledge base as I have, and the network of people who are experts in the field surrounding me to like actually institute a bunch of change. So I just am really excited to get started in the research and just, it's a lot more education. It's 4 or 5 more years of school, but I think it's going to be worth it once I am able to gain all of those, technical skills.
Where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Well, hopefully I'll have graduated with my PhD. I also just, I think it's just finding a job where I'm able to make that kind of a positive impact. I think I had such a positive experience at the Department of Health in New York City that I would love to work for, a city or a state government agency. I think that they're really great areas. They're really great places where you are able to actually instill change. And I've been able to see that and see how that, at least that Department of Health has been working with the community and not just kind of making decisions without taking into account all of the people that they're actually impacting, but they really care about the people in the city. So hopefully for a Department of Health one day, I'll be able to work as like a policy analyst.
How do you feel like you are being strong, smart, and bold in your life right now?
I feel like every day I'm kind of getting closer to being stronger, smarter, and bolder. But I think for me, a big thing has been to try and, not let like voices of fear kind of push me back from pursuing my dreams. And I think that's been one of the biggest pieces of advice that I give to other people who are considering, going on to more school or pursuing a certain job that's a dream job. I think oftentimes we let the voices in our heads, kind of get the best of us and tell us that we're not like maybe good enough, or we're not qualified enough, or that maybe we need to wait and get more experience before we pursue our dreams. And so I feel like I've just had so many experiences over the last few years where, maybe people might not have thought that it was a great decision to, continue on right away in school, or maybe I should have, taken some time off to work and get some more experience. But I feel like I've always just followed my heart, and I'm like, I had to remind myself many times that, I'm just as capable as anyone else to kind of continue on. So I think just reminding ourselves daily that we are smart, we are bold, we are strong, and that we can get, get after any of our dreams and we can reach them. And sometimes it's going against the norm, and sometimes it's maybe not listening to people who may criticize the decisions that we are making. But I think we just got to continue to pursue our dreams despite any fear and despite what other people say, because we're capable.
What advice would you give to young girls or your past self when you were growing up?
Yeah, I guess kind of ties into what I was trying to get at before, but just to go after your dreams and, you know, not allow you to go after whatever it is that you want. And I think for me, that was one of those things where I struggled with, because I was often a very shy person who wanted to go and do everything by the book. And I, maybe wanted to follow what everyone thought I should be doing. But I feel like it's just a matter of kind of taking things into your own hands and knowing that you're capable of doing it. And so just kind of that reminder that you can do it, and that, don't let the fear hold you back.
Who inspires you the most in your life?
Wow. I think I'd have to say my parents. Maybe a cheesy answer, but I think I come from a family where my parents are immigrants, and they, put their life on hold to pursue a better life for themselves, but also for their children and their families. And so I think I'm constantly inspired by all of the things that they have had to overcome in their lifetime, and just to be able to provide for me and my sister. And so I'm honestly always in awe of them. And I think that's part of the reason why I want to, focus my research in the future on immigrant communities, because not only is it a community that's highly underrepresented, and we see a lot of health disparities, and we see impacts from policies on that community, but I also, it's a community that's given back to me so much, and I want to be able to do my part and give back to that.
What is something that you do to remind yourself that you're capable?
That's a good one. I think for me, it's oftentimes I just will look back. I think taking the time to reflect on all the things that I've been able to do is one of the biggest things for me, because oftentimes, life happens and you just kind of keep moving, that you sometimes forget that you have done so much in just such a short amount of time. And I feel like sometimes I just got to sit back and kind of meditate and think to myself and be like, did I really do all of that? I should be proud of myself. And sometimes you just have to remind yourself and take the time to appreciate all that you've been able to do. And I think those are the moments where I'm like, okay, if I've been able to do all of that, then I can continue on and I can keep doing more. And so I think just reminding yourself that you've done so much, small or large, you've still done so much. And so, yeah, I just like to take the time to reflect back on everything.